Within the bath. Within the bath. Every bath begins with a vision, where ideas and strategies define directions, from the depth of strategic thinking to ever-evolving dynamics of the world. A program broadcast in English brings insight into the journeys that shape the course of individuals, institutions, and nations. Prepared and presented by Mohra bint Zubair Al Zubair and audio director, Warrant Officer Ward bin Salim Al Rawahi.
Assalamu alaikum, dear friends. Welcome back to Within the Path. Today marks the end of our second season. This is a moment to step back and reflect on what this journey has revealed as a whole. When I look back at the season, I realized that there was an underlying theme running through it. It appeared in different ways, across different discussions, yet it remained there throughout. That theme was morality, more specifically the importance of having a moral compass. It showed in how situations were handled, in the decisions that followed, and in the way people acted, especially in difficult moments. And alongside that, something else was confirmed. Staying aligned with one's moral compass takes a certain level of self-discipline, and that is not something easy. So with that, let's take a step back and reflect on the journey we took together. At the beginning of the season, we looked at information and intelligence, and at how the same information can lead to very different conclusions, depending on who is interpreting it. Perspective, experience, one's background, and knowledge shape the analysis a person makes, and that analysis shapes the value of the intelligence. From there, the conversation moved into a more immediate reality, where what appears convincing is not always real. The discussion on deepfakes made that very clear. A video or a voice that can feel entirely authentic, and yet it may not reflect reality at all. In that kind of environment, it becomes important to pause, question, and avoid forming conclusions too quickly, and to make sure of the validity of the content at stake, especially at a time when AI is accelerating rapidly. As the season developed, the focus shifted towards leadership and moral development, particularly within the military field. What stood out there is that leadership does not begin at a position. It is shaped over time through experience, environment, and the way responsibility is understood early on. And when we looked at moral development, we learned that it progresses, reaching a point where a person is guided by a clear sense of responsibility and acts accordingly, even under pressure. But not everyone reaches that level, given the self-discipline and strength of moral compass it requires. This carried us into our Ramadan reflections, where we spoke about taqwa, which is known as God consciousness, and which serves as a form of protection. It works outwardly as a shield from temptations, triggers, and influences that may pull a person away from what is right. At the same time, it works inwardly. It protects a person from reacting in ways that may cause harm, from projecting anger and losing control in difficult moments. In that sense, It serves both the individual and those around them. From there, we moved into justice in Islam, specifically in the context of warfare, where even in conflict, there are ethical boundaries that remain in place. Fighting is tied to conditions such as self-defense and the presence of injustice. There are limits that cannot be crossed, including the protection of civilians and the avoidance of excess. And when the other side ceases to fight, the fighting must also come to an end. Justice remains the measure throughout. Dear friends, stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this break. Our dear friends, welcome back. Talking about warfare led to a perplexing question. If people understand what is right and wrong, why do they sometimes act against it? This is where we spoke about moral disengagement. It refers to the way people justify or reframe actions that involve harmful or transgressive conduct, so that behavior they would normally see as wrong begins to feel acceptable. This can happen through shifting responsibility, softening language, or reducing the perceived impact of what is being done. What this showed is that it is possible for someone to act against their own standards, while still feeling justified in doing so. This led into conversations around language, responsibility, and psychological safety. The way something is described can shape how it is perceived by others, and the presence of others can make responsibility feel less direct, and the environment itself can influence whether someone chooses to speak or remain silent. And speaking of environments, these spaces are greatly shaped by those who lead them. Leadership sets the tone. It influences how people think, act, and engage with one another. And that, too, requires discipline. Because the way a person leads has an impact that extends beyond themselves. This connects with what we saw in leadership and moral development. Stepping into that level of responsibility is not something simple. It requires a certain level of discipline, and it asks something from the individual. That same idea extends beyond leadership. It applies across different areas of life, whether in the military, in business, or even within our own homes. Throughout this season, I was constantly reminded that holding on to one's moral compass is not something easy. It takes practice, along with awareness and the ability to remain grounded, even when we are tested. And in many ways, that is where real strength lies, the ability to remain steady and to not allow that sense of direction to lose its way. And that calls for great discipline and reflects a deep belief in the importance of living by those principles. And without that, things would be very different. Because what holds things together in many ways is the presence of people who choose to act in line with that compass. With that said, this season has been very enriching for me. I have learned a great deal through these discussions, and I hope that it has been just as meaningful for you. Until next time, this is Mohra Al Zubair from Within the Path.
Within the Path. Every path begins with a vision, where ideas and strategies define directions, from the depth of strategic thinking to ever-evolving dynamics of the world. a program broadcast in English, brings insight into the journeys that shape the course of individuals, institutions, and nations. Prepared and presented by Mohra bint Zubair Al Zubair and audio director, Warrant Officer Ward bin Salim Al Rawahi.